Hey guys, Zeteo here doing some more Alpha Cup casting. We're looking at the round of 4 between ZLO and Kuchy.
Game started.
Alright, so we got Kuchy, or no, we got ZLO spawned at the bottom center as our blue Armada player. And we got Kuchy here at the top right as our red Armada player. This is Tundra. But yeah, we'll see how these openers differ. Looks like a solar already coming down for Kuchy. Building just a little bit, then building the middle extractor. Finishing up the solar probably directly afterwards. That might seem like an odd thing to do, but if you build 3 mexes, you will stall like for like a half second to a second, like on that third mex, if you're not walking for it. So just building a little bit of solar to offset that like couple seconds, just like giving it, or giving your comm something to do in that half second, and that is to build a solar. And then yeah, lots of wind afterwards. Wind speed is pretty good, but it is low enough that a solar is okay here. On the other side of things, it looks like ZLO has just opened with a lot of wind turbines, and then going directly into that bot lab. So 2 bot labs here. Actually, I might have misspoken there. Kuchy's actually Cortex. I kind of expect a lot of Armada, given the patch that has recently happened. But let's talk about these spawns a little bit. So ZLO here is taking a center position, which makes it easier for him to expand to the left and to the right. You know, there's just more expansion paths to go grab more metal with. But it is a little bit less safe because you have, 2 sides that you can be attacked from. Meanwhile, over here from Kuchy, we have our right-hand side spawn, and that gives him less opportunity to expand. There's really only the 2 directions to start with. But it is a little bit safer early on, so he's not going to have as many problems with these ticks and things that are coming out here. So already a grunt's out crossing the map. Ticks coming over as well. Do some scouting, see where Kuchy's at. And, so far this game looks pretty normal. But yeah, there's been so much talk about, like, is Cortex, like, in a good position? Is it too weak now? And, some are saying it's okay. Some are saying that it's really not okay. I think the nerf was justified, but at the same time maybe went a little bit overboard, and that's even after the bit of a fix, giving the grunts a little bit of range back, not the full amount, but just a little bit. But yeah, they also have slower turn speed, and pawns have more hit points, and and also grunts are more expensive comparatively. They used to only be 36 metal, but now they're, what are they? They're 43 now. Pawns are a little bit more expensive, but not as drastically, at 54 metal cost. But yeah, so far just a lot of units coming out. Mostly pawns here, but plenty of ticks as well from ZLO. We do have looks like only 1 expansion path for now. 1 con going out. Commander still at base, boosting the lab. He is out of metal, so I think he's going to be, continuing to expand on his cons to be able to grab some more mexes. Meanwhile, over here on Kuchy's side of things, we do have just 1 con so far. Commander already left the base, out expanding. And, this is just, again, so safe because you only have 2 routes to really think about, the enemy coming in to attack. There is a tick that sneaks in, though. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, there is a grunt that has snuck through as well. And pawns are a little bit faster, but not fast enough to catch up in, like, a big, meaningful way. But yeah, just picking off that mex, picking off that pawn. And then, yeah, just doing some damage over here. Constructor moving forward. Looks like he's not rerouted quite yet to take these. Okay, so he's going to take one of those mexes back. The other 2 are probably going to be resurrected with these res bots and grunts coming through. Meanwhile, other side of the map, it looks like a tick was picked off there. Another tick comes in. Is going to be able to take out this mex. And Kuchy's commander, you know, he could have set up like an LLT or something like that, but has chosen instead to go for these high value mexes in the middle with his commander, just kind of naked expanding. And I think he's paying for that a little bit. You know, these ticks and things are just getting through, taking out these mexes, and now, you know, it's like you don't even have them anymore. But at the same time, you know, they can be resurrected. They do have wrecks that they left behind, so you know, probably gonna resurrect them with some res bots in a moment here. Some small engagements happening, you know, but this is very much, you know, these small engagements have favored ZLO here. You know, a couple well, actually, it's just one corpse, one debris, a little bit of metal you can get back from that, but not the full wreck amount. But yeah, more and more grunts coming online here. There's quite a few grunts coming across the field, but you know, ZLO does have plenty of pawns to deal with it, but they are kind of out of position here. He really needs to pay attention, try to keep this guy alive, but I think this constructor is going to go down, unfortunately for them. And yeah, grunts are coming in from all these different angles, and I think this is maybe a bit too much for ZLO to handle at the moment. There's more grunts coming in here. Just, you know, these pawns on the right-hand side, or left-hand side here, you know, just too far out of position. You know, thinking that Kuchy might be routing units along that way, trying to protect his Khan on the left. But yeah, unfortunately, the Khan on the right and these mexes are going to be going down. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, you know, there is a bit of harassment too. Getting some damage done, killing off some mexes. But so far, it looks like Kuchy's, like, pretty much done it in terms of, like, having a little bit more income. You know, and losing that Khan certainly hurts. It looks like the Khan on the other side of Kuchy's Khan was also taken out, so you know, it kind of evens out, but at the same time, you know, ZLO does have you know, this Khan on the left that Kuchy doesn't have, so you know, I think Kuchy, you know, he's doing all right for now, but if he doesn't add on another Khan soon, he is going to find himself a little bit further behind. Adding on some more solar at the moment, since wind is you know, a little bit lower. ZLO's commander's actually sitting here idle, and you know, that stuff does happen, but if you're playing for, you know, the premier tournaments, like, you need to be able to you know, keep your commander busy. That's a significant amount of build power that wasn't being utilized for a little while. But yeah, so far just keeping his resources pretty low here. But yeah, you know, over time he's going to be falling behind if he doesn't recover these mexes. But yeah, so far Kuchy on the aggressive side of things, which is, I suppose that's pretty normal considering that, you know, pawns are a little bit, you know, everything's a little bit more expensive, but, you know, I think grunts produce a little bit faster, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, I kind of want to look at this really quick. 1420 build time for pawns, and 1280 for grunts. So yeah, grunts a little bit cheaper on build time, a little bit cheaper on resources. You know, so he can crank out a little bit more. But yeah, the pawn should be a little bit stronger than the grunts overall. But yeah, obviously it depends on the engagement, like how the grunts actually engage, and if they utilize that extra range that they have on the pawn. But yeah, ZLO kind of looking like he's in trouble here. You know, he's still losing some stuff here and there. You know, these grunts even outranging these pawns over here a little bit, getting some extra damage in. You know, and that's certainly favoring Kuchy, and Kuchy's already taken the center of the map. Now, these mexes and things in the center are bigger mexes. You know, some of these are 3.6s, for example, whereas the rest of them are 1.9s. And Kuchy's metal's actually rising a bit, so he could add on some more build power, perhaps. Yeah, it looks like he's going to do just that, just has some stuff queued up. Actually hasn't resurrected that mex in the back. I think he's probably forgotten about it at this point. And also there's, well, there's even more wrecks around here that he could resurrect, potentially. But 2 cons out expanding, doing a 2 con for every mex or for every path kind of thing. You know, and ZLO really needs to recover some of these mexes that he's lost. I'm not sure what I guess the res bots are prioritizing resurrecting units at the moment. You know, needing to just add on more, you know, probably looking to add on some more pressure here. Yeah, if he keeps pressure on Kuchy, then he's gonna have an easier time defending these locations. But unfortunately for him, like there's just such a big difference in income that he also needs to like consider picking up, these mexes so that he, gets some more metal income. And yeah, as time has gone on here, like, I think Kuchy's in a perfectly good position here to win this match. It's just, the metal difference has been sitting that way for too long for ZLO. I mean, if he's really careful and Kuchy makes some mistakes, like, he can certainly get back in the game, but assuming Kuchy plays really well, or continues to play well, it should be just fine, I think. Oh, okay, so these cons might get picked off. Unfortunately, the pawn stops short. But yeah, if you lose those cons, like, that would be a good first step into, making this work a little bit better for ZLO. But yeah, with this vehicle lab also producing stuff from the center, this is an excellent position for Kuchy to be in. Capturing the middle and, having bigger mexes for it, put down a lab, make that like a stronghold, makes it a lot harder for your opponent to attack. If they want to get to that, the stuff back here, they have to go all the way around, and that takes time. There's plenty of time to like potentially see that, and it's a lot easier to defend for that reason. But his res bots might be in trouble here. They're resurrecting, they're picking up what they can, but there's a lot of grunts coming in here. Yeah, this is certainly a lot of grunts. There are no towers as of yet. Nothing's been rebuilt. Trying to get up a tower right now, but unfortunately another con gets picked off. And yeah, he's going to lose these mexes once again. He's going to lose this resbot even. This resbot that's sitting idle. So I think there's just been way too many mistakes from ZLO at this point. And Kuchy is going to, come in here and maybe even close it out pretty soon here because, incisors are certainly pretty tanky, units compared to grunts. So, as long as he doesn't just throw them away, he should be good. And even these pawns, or I'm sorry, these grunts getting in the back of the base of ZLO. Even picking off a solar there, or a couple of solars. And yeah, look at this income difference. Just like energy, metal, build power, everything's like way in favor of Kuchy at this point. Even getting a pounder across the map, a couple of pounders here, in fact. And that's going to be really hard for ZLO to handle here. Certainly a very efficient unit versus things like pawns and ticks. They have, quite the DPS. I would actually consider them better units than Janus. But yeah, they are slow. And, they have a little bit less range. So, if you can abuse the shortness of their range and their slowness, they are only strong if they're like, in the right position to be helpful. But yeah, with these pounders jumping on the location here, ZLO is just going to lose his entire base, it looks like. Even the lab's going to be going down here in a moment. D-gun goes off, but yeah, there's just too much here. Too much damage has been dealt. And the metal income has gone all the way down to 4 for ZLO. At this point, I think he's just gonna basically tap out by trying to, defend these units. It's so far gone, I'm not sure. Yeah, that's probably the GG right there. And yeah, ZLO loses the game. Kuchy wins game number 1 here. We got
battle ended.
We've got game number 2 on the way, so don't go anywhere. All right, so this map is going to be Arksumkat's Valley.
Game started.
Let's get into it here. So we got ZLO spawned at the bottom right as our blue Armada player. And we have Kuchy spawned as our Cortex player at the top left, playing as our red guy. Now, interesting spawn here from Kuchy. It's a little bit safer than the usual spawn being here, which is basically where ZLO has taken. But yeah, pretty standard stuff to spawn on the high ground here. There is some cheeky stuff you can do with this spawn over here, just because it's closer to your opponent, whom you can pretty much assume is going to be spawning on this high ground. just kind of allows for some early aggression up this ramp before it gets choked off. But yeah, cross positions here. So, you know, both players going to be sitting pretty defensively. This map certainly is a little bit more defensive than a lot of other 1v1 maps. There's only 3 positions through the center of the map, and then there's also only 3 ways up to your main base. So, you know, and the and the base is on the high ground here, so it's a little bit easier to defend early on, since you can just like kind of choke it up with some towers. You can either decide to put 2 towers here on the top of the ramp, or you can put one towards the bottom, and that will cover the entire space there. You know, same thing with the other ramps. You can just put like a tower somewhere, and you're pretty well defended, as those units, you know, struggle to get up that ramp, you know, losing a little bit of move speed here. But yeah, it does favor a little bit more of an economical opener. We got 2 cons out for ZLO here. He does have an early tick out, but Kuchy, I see a bomber on the mini map here. We see a bomber opener, and this is an interesting play here. So bomber first, it's going to be followed up by a scout, and then probably you know, probably some shurikens for defense, constructor at some point, and even a heavy transport here. So I'm curious to see if he does you know, some kind of aggression with the heavy transport, or if he is just going to be scooting his commander around to take mexes a little faster with it. But either way, bomber's out now, scout's out. Looks like he's just having it patrolled, and he gets spotted immediately by this tick. So very nice play opening with that tick, just like saying like, hey, like, yeah, I do want to do an economic opener, but I'd still want to get some information. Maybe not enough ticks to like lay down pressure, but I still want to see what's going on, and that's certainly paying off for him at this moment in time. But yeah, bomber's going to be coming up here. Anti-air bot already out, 2 nettles out, and yeah, they're in a forward position here, which is interesting. I see a lot of players put the anti-air more in the center of their base, which makes it, you know, so that the bomber can still drop and deal damage, but it'll likely get taken out since there's 2 nettles. Since they're in a forward position, it's a little bit easier to take it out before it drops the bombs. And Kuchy has the potential here to drop some bombs on the economy here and avoid the nettles coming in from a side angle. But with this anti-air bot out, he decides against it. Would rather keep the bomber alive, and I think that's a great choice. I see a lot of players sacrifice the bomber, you know, and that basically just amounts to, you know, the bomber's no longer in existence, so it doesn't generate any threats. And I think that's a very important thing with this opener, is to keep everything alive, so that you know, you're posing a threat with the air units, so that you have to, you know, you're forcing your opponent to build anti-air in various locations. That or sell the bot lab to get an air lab and get fighters out. And you don't really want to do that if you're looking to expand, if you're looking to build units. So, you know, ZLO trying to lay down some pressure, but the shurikens are stopping it. But yeah, it looks like this pawn was able to take out that one shuri. Pawns can attack air, but they do a little bit less damage, and they, you know, trade. Well, I would say they trade pretty evenly with banshees, or you know, they can take out banshees. But yeah, shurikens just stop the pawns, so you kind of need a lot of pawns to deal with that. But yeah, bomber's still out, so he's going to use that a little bit defensively. He's got to be really careful, as that bomber only has 17 hit points. But yeah, constructor is out, taking some of these, you know, side mexes. And that's kind of the nice thing about an air opener, is you get that air con. You know, of course, they have a lot less build power than your standard cons, but at the same time, you know, they move around pretty fast. They fly over terrain, so you can take these like weird mexes. That's, you know, harder for your opponent to get to. Yeah, this pawn gets shut down. There is a tick in the base, but I don't think it's going to do too much. But maybe you can take out this mex. But yeah, shuriken in hot pursuit can take that out pretty easily. And Kuchy even just saying, you know, I'm not even going to waste the time taking it out right now with my commander. I'm going to move on, grab more mexes, continue on expanding, because he needs to catch up in terms of economy. Now, ZLO, in the meantime, has sent 2 cons out expanding. Commander's still at base, boosting the lab. He does have a con turret out here. But yeah, once in a while, adding on some cons. Probably going to be rapidly expanding here with all that, as he, you know, kind of has the time to, right? If you look at Kuchy's base, or look at, you know, how developed Kuchy is. Oh, the air con gets taken out here. That's quite unfortunate, because that air con is a, you know, a good means to to add some economy on. And yeah, just the advance of these anti-air bots are, taking out the Shreys, taking out the aircon, potentially posing a threat to the heavy transport, the Lamborghini for the commander, the special transport to, shuttle the commander around. But yeah, it does have a lot of hit points, so it should be just fine for now. But yeah, Bomber is still alive out on the map, generating threat. And so, like, he can threaten all these mexes. It actually looks like he's going for one that wasn't recapped, unfortunately. But if he kept the scout alive, okay, the scout is alive, so he's going to be able to look for where the mexes are and then bomb them. And as low, it's like, it's really hard to deal with that, because you kind of need anti-air to be in various locations. And it's just like a cost you don't really want to have. Yeah, especially like the anti-air bots are in these like forward positions, looking to destroy stuff, but at the same time, this leaves it so vulnerable in the back. Oh, Bomber misses. Actually doesn't take out that extractor yet. Another anti-air bot out to, defend the region, I suppose. But yeah, it looks like, 4 cons out for ZLO at this point. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Kuchy, has transitioned into incisors. Incisors going to deal pretty well with these pawns if they, once they catch the pawns, but they are a little bit slower, so, the pawns can potentially still find damage. And yeah, Kuchy's not paying attention. These incisors are just sitting here. Actually, both players not paying attention. Okay, ZLO is moving some units up to kill that con. Very big deal, because, Kuchy really needs cons going around expanding right now. He lost that air con, so, like, losing this second con is a very, very big deal. He does have enough incisors to deal with these pawns, but, it's going to be really tricky, with the difference in movement speed, difference in turn speed. The pawns can, like, find opportunities to jump on incisors that get separated from the group and things like that. Kuchy coming up, trying to take out this con here, but ZLO a little bit too fast, catches it. Con's going to survive. And yeah, it's just, at this point, there's a lot of pawns out, a lot of ticks as well, and just a lot of cons. and this is kind of one of the nice things about a bot lab opener, is you can just have a lot of units out pretty early. Whereas these incisors, they take a little bit longer to produce. You need plenty of actually, he doesn't have enough energy here. The wind has kind of died down, so that's why he's not producing a lot of incisors at this point. Some pawns do some damage, but it's not like a gigantic amount. But he certainly needs to remember to boost his economy. He really needs another con working on that, which looks like is exactly what's going to happen after he takes those mexes. But yeah, one of the tricky things when you go with the, more or less going with the vehicle opener, especially if it's after an air opener, is you're just going to have less units. So those units, like where they're positioned is very important. And it's just a situation where units can run around the incisors a little bit, especially since pawns are a little bit faster. And yeah, there's a pretty sizable chunk of pawns coming towards Kuchy's base, and it's going to be really hard for these incisors to catch them. A couple of defending, incisors up here with this tower, I think should be able to take care of a lot of this, but he's got to be really careful. He's running so close in there. Gotta be careful. Self-D on the tower. Tower goes down before it gets off. And yeah, just ZLO with all the extra cons going about, definitely is in a good economic position. Even has more than, he has like 3 cons added on wind turbines, or should be. This guy's kind of idle, but actually, these guys even adding on some economy and stuff too. So lots of builders out, and just, also able to do a lot of pressure. I don't think the bomber did enough, really. A little bit unfortunate, but like, that's basically what you do against bombers. You just, you deal with the bombers with the anti-air, and then you just go like rapidly into, into expansion while laying down pressure. And I think, just the choice of going vehicle for Kuchy is maybe just not a great choice on this map, because there's just so many mexes to have, and you're playing from behind already. You know, doing a slower thing with vehicles. You know, since the cons and stuff are a little bit more expensive, you know, they take longer to get to come online, and if you're already behind, you get this situation where the bots are just kind of like running rampant, and it's hard to deal with it. Kuchy actually transporting a tower with his heavy transport. You can transport some T1 stuff with the heavy transport. Unfortunately, it's on hold fire, so it's not actually doing anything, but he's going to pick up his opponent's tower. Has the possibility to capture it. Meanwhile, there are some Banshees out on the map as well. And yeah, I really like this from ZLO. You know, just like reading the situation really well. Just like, okay, you opened Air Lab. You know, obviously you're going to sell it because you need a ground force. You know, so did you produce a fighter in that or not? And generally speaking, you don't. So now it's kind of, the script is flipped. And, you know, now ZLO is able to do some pressure with air. You know, it's a different kind of pressure too. And even having this anti-air bot like hidden in the corner means, you know, he has some anti-air to deal with fighters. You know, this fighter coming off the line just going to get picked off immediately. And these Banshees have already wrecked a bunch of mexes, going for the base now. And yeah, I think Kuchy's just in a lot of trouble for it. Meanwhile, though, Kuchy is laying down a lot of pressure with these incisors. You know, it's hard to, you know, produce out of an air lab and a bot lab. It looks like the air lab has been paused for now to prioritize pawns. He desperately needs them, as you know, you kind of need a lot of pawns to deal with incisors. So, you know, sizable force doing some damage, but luckily for ZLO, incisors, you know, they don't deal damage that fast, and so it, you know, it's taking a while for his base to like fall here. Whereas, you know, if there was something like a blitz would just come in here and destroy the place pretty easily. So, you know, he's only going to take so many losses. But yeah, I think Kuchy is taking too much damage back at his base. These incisors just running rampant, or not incisors, these Banshees running rampant, and GG is called. Very interesting
ended.
game there. You know, I really like that opener. You know, I like it. It's just like you got to be so very careful with all your units. And, you know, I like the opener in terms of the like units coming out of the air lab. I think the vehicle lab was a bit of a mistake though. You know, you're just like kind of giving up too much to produce vehicles, you know, to produce units at a slower rate, and you're not able to like, you know, fully utilize the bomber because you're not like gaining enough ground during that time. You know, and also just like the bomber could have done more things. You know, there's of course more micro opportunities, but ZLO played an excellent game. Just you know, having the anti-air bots where he needed them to be. And then yeah, that follow up with the Banshees was stellar. You know, having that anti-air bot there to deal with the fighter, like yeah, like such a good play. Sneaking that's anti-air bot into the corner. I kind of missed what happened there, but it must have just like come up here and not been spotted on radar, you know, and just stayed put until the Banshees came out. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that match. I certainly did, and I really kind of hope Game 3 kind of goes the same way. Anyways, such an interesting game. I feel like I could talk about it for a while. But yeah, this is going to be game number 3 coming up here.
Game started.
All right. So game 3, we've got ZLO spawned at the bottom right as our Armada player. Or yes, Armada. No, Cortex actually. Yeah, I guess I'm just looking at the mexes incorrectly. But yeah, Armada for Kuchy here. So there are trading places. Kuchy here, spawned at the top left. This is Onyx Cauldron. Quite the interesting map. Are they opening standard? Let's take a look at that before we say anything else. But yeah, bot lab for ZLO. Kuchy, yeah, it looks like he's going to do a bot lab as well. But yeah, anyways, this map is interesting. There aren't like a ton of mexes, but the mexes are a little bit bigger. They're 2.1s, which is, on average a bit bigger. And it's interesting because the middle point isn't the focal point, because this is so narrow, it's hard to push down when there's plenty of open space to run around that location, right? So then it's like a matter of, do you primarily focus on this region, or do you focus on the sides? You know, and then there's a mechs here, but like, you know, it's primarily just all about, you know, if you're going that you know, top left or top right routes, or if you're going to the bottom left here. Usually the commanders go to the bottom left though, because there is a pretty sizable amount of metal here, and if you control your opponent's choke into that location, the entire location becomes yours. You know, so it's a very, you know, it can be a very big deal. There's also like more mexes in this region than there is like at the top area, so you know, it's just a little bit richer too. So that's generally what you're fighting for, and then there's generally like cons trying to grab the other stuff that, you know, can be threatened and picked off, and you get kind of funny little situations where it's like you have your con up there, they have theirs, you see it first, so then you build a tower and you use that tower to take out the enemy con, and you know, start grabbing the mexes for yourself. Little situations like that can be kind of interesting. But yeah, Resbot's out here reclaiming mostly the crystals first. So crystals do have a little bit of metal, or at least some of the bigger ones do. Yeah, it looks like Kuchy with a 2-con opener, just 1 Resbot. And yeah, so ZLO opening a little bit more economically, has 2 Resbots out, going for those crystals. And yeah, having 2 cons out expanding is quite nice to have. Kuchy is playing a little bit more defensively, so I think ZLO is playing, you know, reading the situation really well. Not that he's like done a ton of scouting, but like, you know, I guess just you know, knowing how Kuchy might play on this map, or you know, reading how the map goes, you know, can be such a big thing. But certainly going to be a little bit ahead for that. Metal's, you know, of course, going a little bit more in his favor. And yeah, just kind of waiting to see how this progresses here. A couple of pawns on the, or sorry, grunts. I'm so used to blue being Armada at this point. A couple of grunts coming up to harass, doing a nice job splitting them off. You know, split 2 down here. The enemy comes up with pawns to, you know, deal with that. He's retreating, so he's getting some extra damage with that range. But then also sending 1 out to, like, hopefully sneak by, maybe get the con. Unfortunately, Kuchy being too smart for that, sends some pawns over, and, you know, that grunt's going to be taken out no problem. Meanwhile, center of the map here, we do have some grunts out, trying to abuse some range. And I think we are certainly seeing some of that, like, turn speed decrease for the grunts coming into factor here. You know, you can tell them to retreat, but they take longer to turn around, so that means the pawns have a bit of an easier time closing that gap. You know, it makes them feel a little bit clunkier, but at the same time, I think it's a really good change to balance the 2 things. But yeah, lots of grunts popping out. And yeah, he's even got one to maybe threaten the position here. It's not on radar yet. I guess Kuchy just had some really good game sense, knowing that he needs to protect this con, send some units over. And yeah, I guess, yeah, just he's closed off this gap here, right, with his pawns. So that means ZLO, you know, has probably seen that, has those units there, so he's sending the majority of his units elsewhere to attack this location. So there's a lot of threat on this location, but at the same time, it's a little bit easier to defend because of this path here versus, you know, ZLO having to go around this way. And yeah, Kuchy's going to be shooing him away here with all those pawns coming out. But yeah, I think all these cons expanding have certainly helped out ZLO. You know, what was that? Three cons out. He's got like what, 5 Resbots out? No, I guess that's just 4 Resbots out. Yeah, he's not going to really be able to get too much done here, but he is generating threat on that side, forcing Kuchy to stay at his base a little bit more. You know, Kuchy not sending units out as much. Yeah, even some converters coming online here. I guess just, you know, with the winds varying so heavily, 1 to 29. Just FYI, wind turbines cannot generate more than 25 energy per second, but that does increase the average of the winds. Makes it quite high. You know, so average being 20 is gigantic. That is a ton of wind. You know, so you really don't need that much, but you do want to store a lot of it. You know, you want to, you know, make sure that you have enough if it does dip down. But yeah, we see some pawns here. They're going to find this constructor. It's kind of a big deal to lose that constructor, but at the same time, he has so many out that I think he's going to be okay with it. But yeah, actually, this constructor is going to be going down as well. Now that's a big deal because 2 out of the 3 constructors being picked off is huge. And Kuchy, you know, coming back into the game because of that. You know, ZLO has added on this thug, and I think he had intentions to be, you know, use it to attack and support his grunts here. But you know, at this point, it's like, well, maybe, you know, if he had spent those on grunts, then maybe he would have a little bit more pressure, or you know, be able to continue the pressure, be able to defend a little bit easier. Or maybe it's just, you know, the timing of the thug comes out right as these pawns are threatening, and now you don't have pawns coming out to help defend as easily. You know, sometimes, you know, little bits of timing like that can throw the game into a whole new direction. Yeah, self-D on this pawn. In case anyone's wondering, that is a pretty normal thing to do if you know that it's going to get picked off. You know, do some damage, self-D it, then you don't leave a wreck behind. Nothing to reclaim. But yeah, lots of pawns coming in here. This is really threatening for ZLO. You know, pawns are being aggressive in this way are really strong because they push, you know, they force the grunts that have to retreat, but at the same time you're trying to like engage with the pawns so that you're defending, and that makes it really hard because it makes it really hard to abuse their extra range. So, but yeah, it looks like ZLO has done a reasonable job, just kind of like, you know, having plenty of units to work with that. I think, you know, pulling everything that was being aggressive back to deal with that. But at the same time, he doesn't have anything to answer this right now. He has some units coming down from the top left, or sorry, top right. Apparently, I don't know my left to right on this map in particular. Yeah, gonna lose a few, or I guess only one. Well, I guess 2 mexes. But yeah, these are gonna leave some wrecks behind for ZLO to have. Still pressuring on the left side of ZLO's base. Now I hear an air unit. Looks like we're going bombers once again. This time it's you know, it's not an opener, so he's going to be producing quite a few. And yeah, bombers can do significant damage to the economy, and you know, defending against it, a lot of the time it's really hard to get enough anti-air around your base. Like you need like a whole ring around your base to properly, you know, make it so that they can't even drop bombs, right? So you know, when it comes to bombers, the proper defense is actually to just spread out your wind turbines. And, you know, ZLO has done a really good job of that. You know, you're just basically minimizing the damage, you know, and hopefully, you know, you have enough intel to see the bombers ahead of time so you can get some sort of anti-air out. Oh, wow, he's already producing some anti-air. I'm not sure if he just has really good sense of like, okay, it's Kuchy. He probably is doing air at some point. Let me just grab some anti-air. You know, certain things like that, like understanding your opponent, can be just so important. You know, especially at this high tier level of gaming. But yeah, lots of bombers out. It's certainly being shown at this point. Scout comes out, gets picked off, so he doesn't quite see the base. In fact, what does he see? Okay, sees this little bit. Not enough anti-air out to, you know, completely stop the bombing, but, you know, enough anti-air out to, you know, pick him off eventually. So hopefully Kuchy doesn't get too much damage in for ZLO's sake. But yeah, lots of good damage here. Even though it's spread out, Kuchy's done a pretty reasonable job here. Well, I say that, but that last bombing was kind of not as great. Probably paying attention more to other things as well. And look at this little outpost that ZLO has there on the top right. But yeah, bombers are, you know, in terms of attacking the base, I think they're pretty much done. But there's certainly a lot of other mexes around that he could also pick off. And, you know, ZLO here, you know, he could be potentially pressuring during this, but I think he's maybe worried about, you know, moving his units around a bit, or maybe he's trying to just recover in terms of economy. But yeah, Look at this. He doesn't have that much wind, but it's actually still like enough because the wind speed is so high. It's a crazy amount of winds. Converting is certainly a good idea on this map. Yeah, it looks like ZLO not paying attention. These pawns jumping on this group of grunts and pawns that he has. You know, and that's certainly a sizable wreck field that's going to be closer to Kuchy. So it looks like he is trying to send some units back over to, you know, take control of that once again. Pawn's trying to get in here as well, but yeah, ZLO has quite a few units here, quite the line of units to defend against anything on that side. So yeah, you know, he just really needs to like recap those mexes. You know, needs to fight for more territory, and I think Kuchy, you know, already being a little bit ahead on economy, and then going air lab, you know, he hasn't been able to throw down as much aggression on the ground. So, you know, making an air lab just opening that opportunity for him. Rocket bot out. I'd love to see it. It's because there's been plenty of towers here from Kuchy. Yeah, just like a single rocket bot, maybe a couple, you know, just to like take care of that, you know, those towers is certainly helpful. Looks like 3 are out so far. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people think of it like, you know, do you go pawn or do you go rocket? But why don't you go mostly pawn with some rocket? You know, it's not a this or that. It's a, you could do a mix, you know. You know, and certainly like you don't want a lot of rocket bots in the situation. You want like enough to be able to take out towers, to be able to like do a little bit of extra damage from a distance, but then you also need plenty of pawns to defend those rocket bots. You need plenty of grunts or pawns to engage with the enemy and get to places to defend and to attack. So, you know, all really important stuff. Some Banshees out, just, you know, taking care of this outpost here. You know, certainly a helpful tool, forcing a little bit of anti-air. And, you know, ZLO has some fighters of his own at this point. So, I mean, I feel like they're a little bit out of position, but I guess he's prioritizing protecting this location. Since we were talking about this area down here being a little bit more important than the top right. But yeah, it's definitely a big engagement here. Looks like it certainly favors ZLO, though. And yeah, there's just so many resable parts here that, you know, whoever gets those is certainly going to turn the tides into their favor. So both players kind of fighting for that at the moment. But yeah, it looks like Kuchy has more more res bots out. He's got 5 in this location. Oh, I say that, but I didn't see this group of 4 down here. Okay, so ZLO actually going to be able to reclaim most of this, I think. Especially since he has a larger army. Able to engage with, you know, able to take out this position. Even the res bots of Kuchy's are threatened here. And this is certainly a really good move. He's maybe going to even pull the, you know, the bit of difference in metal is not going to matter if all these units that are resurrected for ZLO. But yeah, it looks like meanwhile the Banshees were taken care of. There's still some fighters out for ZLO. And now, yeah, okay, so ZLO coming in here. I feel like this is an overextension here, though. And it's like, you know, first of all, right into the commander. Commanders are hard to take out with, you know, considering they have D-guns. And, you know, at this level, players are certainly going to have plenty of storage, you know, to be able to D-gun. Actually, he only has 1 storage, interestingly enough. Bomber out for ZLO. Kind of getting some payback for himself. But yeah, look at the spread of these wind turbines. That's so spread out. You're not going to get that much damage with that. But yeah, ZLO just needs to be careful, bide his time, continue to hold this wreck field. And yeah, I wouldn't even mind if these cons like skip this max just to place down some towers to like guarantee that you're going to get that wreck field. Because that is certainly a really big deal. ZLO with a big attack at the top center here, though, and it looks like Kuchy doesn't have enough to deal with that at the moment. He's busy like trying to fight for this wreck field, and yeah, I think he's just like not seeing this. Even an anti-air bot to like deal with the Banshee here, and yeah, all these grunts and yeah, I guess they're basically all grunts coming in here. going to be able to do some damage. Like, this is certainly going to be able to take out some of this economy. So far, he's just going for the explosives, also known as converters. And I think this is maybe a bit of a misstep for Kuchy. Just the layout with these converters mixed in with the wind turbine certainly makes it easy to chain his base. Meanwhile, the fighting over here continues. And yeah, it's just all these res parts, or all these res units from ZLO here. You know, he certainly has a lot more units for it. Is there any kind of transition? No, just doing air stuff still. No ground forces, so no you know, bot lab or anything like that. He certainly has a bank, and you know, I'd say that's certainly a mistake, as he's accessing a bit of metal at the moment. But yeah, looking at the map here, zooming out, ZLO has, you know, basically most of the map. He's laying on pressure in Kuchy's base. He has control over the wreck field. And even though Kuchy has now made towers, he's going to be able to resurrect some of this stuff. You know, it's just too much damage maybe at his base to, like, really deal with this stuff. And yeah, just with ZLO having such a... I mean, at this point, even having such air dominance, which is basically going to guarantee that this bomber can continue doing stuff unless Kuchy decides to build anti-air bots, which apparently isn't happening right now. I think just too much pressure on him to control the wreck field. Trying to come in here, do some damage in the back. You know, and this basically is allowing his commander to get into a better position, lay down some towers, you know, make it so that his, you know, res bots get the field. But yeah, I think it's maybe not enough. Because yeah, he's certainly taken a lot of damage. Still producing plenty of energy, you know. It's just not, you know, less metal because he's not converting anymore. Let's see. Okay, so we have a vehicle plant transition, T1, no T2 out. I mean, certainly he could if he wants to at this point, but you know, for the sake of closing the game out quicker, you might as well just kill him with T1, right? So Khan's getting picked off here, not a big deal though. And yeah, bombers are still kind of running around. Kind of unfortunate here. An anti-air bot finally comes out, but it's certainly a little too late. And yeah, I think it's pretty common for players to, like, you know, they see a bombing coming, so they build anti-air, and then they switch out of it because the bombers are gone, and then they go into ground, and then, you know, ground hits them as a follow-up, so then they have to defend against that. You know, and I think it's a really smart play to say, like, oh, I'm just going to bomb you again because your anti-air is no longer there, right? Especially if the anti-air, you know, if it's mobile anti-air and the anti-air has, like, gone onto the map. Obviously, you can't do that if there's, like, a bunch of nettles. You know, it wouldn't be as good of an idea then. But yeah, medium tanks coming out. You know, they don't... You know, it takes them a minute to, like, actually kill a bunch of stuff, but overall, like, once it builds up a force, it's going to be rather strong here. But yeah, medium tanks can take so much damage. He's forced out of the position, but a lot of these medium tanks are going to survive. Yeah, and I mean, honestly, from my point of view, I feel like vehicles are making the game take longer to close out than if he had gone with grunts or something. You know, I guess in my opinion, it's like, you produce a lot of grunts, you still be everywhere, and then, like, once you've destroyed so much of their territory, you know, you should have plenty of units to, you know, surround the commander and make it very difficult for them to do things like degun. And medium tanks are a little bit more of a play where, you know, it's a little bit more long-term, they're a little bit more expensive, so they take longer to, you know, mass up. And they're also a lot easier to get deguns, so you gotta be really careful. Kuchy, like, still playing this out. His commander's getting a little bit low as he deguns on a light laser tower. And I mean, I don't know. There's some pawns coming back here. Maybe you can do some damage. He's certainly not going to be able to produce any more air. There's way too many fighters out at the moment. And yeah, his commander's getting bombed. He cloaks to try to save it. And I guess there's no radar around, so I mean, you know, I guess it's mostly going to work. as these bombs are missing. Actually, I'm really curious. I'm going to put it on as view. Okay, so there is a radar close enough to see it. I guess this radar's no. Oh, okay. Well, the commander gets killed off here. Oh, there's a radar plane. I didn't see that. Okay.
Battle ended.
I was like, how is he seeing the commander? But yeah, anyways, that sums it up for our 3-game set here. Once again, this is the round of, yeah, it's round of 6 that that this was in. But yeah, I'm going to continue on casting the rest of Alpha Cup. Yeah, I'm basically going to be doing all the round of 4 plus games and all the losers bracket round of 6 plus. So there should be plenty of sets coming up. And hopefully I'll be covering a lot of the good ones that, that the main channel wasn't able to cover. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and look out for some more videos.